Hello everybody, today on Random Game Adventures we're doing a first impressions of Contrast. This is a puzzle platformer that mixes both 3D and 2D. Now, I looked at this game and it's quite amazing. Now, when you initially look here, the world seems rather empty. There's no people but me. And there is actually a girl that we'll get to see in a second. The reason that we can't see anyone is because, well, we don't know exactly why, but no one can see me apart from this little girl, and she's the only one who can see me in their world. Now this can be a little inconsistent. If they are near a light, they should shine shadows. Sometimes these shadows don't work properly, but most people will shine shadows when they're on the light, and as you can see I do too. Now the way this works in 2D, this is a perfect example, is you can shift in and you can't get killed, you just get knocked out of the shadow world in here. But you can use actually real things, and you can actually see there, you can see he's gonna hit, you can see how he hits. So this is the mechanic. The mechanic's really nice, and all the puzzles use it really well, and it gets more complicated as you go along in different ways. It's not going to send. This is not our last attraction. Okay. So you have to repair. I've just gone back, and I'm meant to be going back to this chapter, but apparently it's decided we're going to go to a different one. So there's this. You go through the game with the little girl. These are quite clever actually. There's different things that represent what was happening at the time. So this one's theatre reel because it happened in a theatre, and this is a clip that something that happened in the theatre, but now it's in shadows, and then you can use the shadows. And there was a collectible up there, so you could use it to actually get on him, and because he's bending down, you can climb on top of him and use that kind of in different ways. So they're not they're people that are there, it's kind of like replaying memories. Is this where we get to? This one is quite an interesting one.
Has anyone seen the princess puppet? We can't start the story without her.
So he's looking for the princess puppet, and we see handily in the corner there's a kind of like a princess hat, and so what we can do is take the princess hat, and when we're wearing the princess hat, our shadow then makes us look like a princess. I'm going to talk over the top of this guy just because there's not much where people aren't talking to each other, so just excuse that. So basically when you're in the shadow world, you can't be killed, but you can be knocked out of the shadow, and you can also exit whenever you like with left click. There's a left click to go in. You also, in most shadows and in the normal world, have this dash ability, and you use right mouse and you can dash through breakable objects, or you can dash, like if you're in shadow, if they're thin bits of shadow you can dash through them. You can't in this because it's a story and the princess wouldn't be able to dash in the story. Now this mechanic is good. There are a few problems however. Firstly, sometimes shadows don't show up. Most people cast shadows whenever it's only certain lights that are really strong that cast shadows, and there's one, I'm guessing there's one behind this casting the shadows. However, sometimes people walk in front of shadows. There are people there but you can't see their shadows. Also sometimes their shadows show up in the wrong places. They show up if they're on a sofa, it will show up behind the sofa. So it can be a bit weird. So sometimes the shadows are a bit odd, but most of the time it looks quite good. If I fall on those spikes, I'll just get kicked out of the shadow. So most of it isn't like long platforming, but there is a bit like long bits of platform in the shadow. This is just one attraction, which is both shadow, which is lots of shadow. It's kind of a good mechanic because the only people that you can see are actually you and the daughter, so it means they don't really have to, or the little girl, so it means that they don't really have to worry too much about actually rendering. Not rendering, actually like modelling humans. They only have to worry about their shadows. And their modelling work is not exactly what I would say is the best. Oh, there we go, we got kicked out of the shadow. Their modelling work is not exactly what I'd call the best models in the world. They're alright, but they're not exactly anything to go home and try. But as you can see here, this is just some little puzzle thing. I've got to hit this branch, then as this branch knocks me up, I've got to jump onto this branch and then jump over to here. There's just different basic platform elements as it goes along. There are some that use 2D and then go into 3D and then go into 2D. Oh, that's pretty good. Oh, don't hit me. So this is kind of showing, but I'm only going to show you literally this puzzle because otherwise it will spoil it for you. Now I might see if I can show you a bit afterwards. I managed to. What? The tree will. Oh no, the tree killed me. The dialogue in this game is quite good actually. It's quite funny. Oh well, yeah, it's quite funny. It's quite. The characters talk to each other in kind of a way that you'd imagine. They kind of feel alive. They feel like they're actually talking to you as opposed to just hit this bit of wood, please. Oh. Why did some of the things are inconsistent? Like so there's a few things. When you're 2D, 3D, sorry, your movement is super fast. You move kind of double what a normal person would ever be able to run at, and it kind of makes it you move less fluid, and it makes some of the puzzles actually harder. No, oh, damn. Because you can't move like fluidly. There are also sometimes where you should be able to be in shadow and it just randomly kicks you out of shadow, so sometimes it's a bit inconsistent. Most of the time the shadow is alright and that all works fine. There needs one thing that there's not, which it would be a good idea if there were, is some hints on certain things. So this is obvious what I have to do here. I have to get him to hit the branch so it gets stuck in. Get him to hit the tree stump so he gets stuck in the tree stump. And not actually attack me. There we go. Then I have to jump over here. Jump as he whacks his thing at me. Yeah, and then jump. But I should have been able to jump on his head there. I don't know why. You have to be... Some of the puzzles, like, they don't quite work properly. There is one that I got really stuck on, and it was just a silly thing that I got stuck on, but there's no, like, help. The girl, like, is normally there when there's a difficult puzzle, but she doesn't tend to, like, actually... Although she helps you, like, do things that are set up for her to do, she doesn't, like, if you, like, take too long, give you little bits of advice. Even just for a little bit might be helpful. The game did have some bugs with VSync. There were lots of screen tearing, but they've now got that option in, and that's automatically enabled. You can turn it off if you want. There's also controller support for the game. I haven't tried a controller. I don't have a 360 pad here to try, but people have been saying that seems to work alright. The game is 3 acts long. This is halfway through or part of Act 2. You get your powers more or less by the end of Act 1. Act 2 and 3 are then more developing and going through the story. The story is quite good if you have enough imagination to kind of read between the lines. There's quite a lot of collectibles that kind of help you to understand how it's going, what's happening and that kind of thing. Now we have to actually wait here for dialogue. That's good. The models aren't exactly the best, but they're not the worst. They're kind of crude. Most of the models are kind of crude, and the nicest bits of the game are the shadow play, really. Your model and the girl's model are quite nice. They don't necessarily look quite like humans. They're almost Uncanny Valley type humans. You were kind of alright, but the girl is a bit weird. She doesn't look quite right, and it's almost a bit freaky, really. She is just a little bit off. I think it's maybe her face is just a bit thin or something. So here you can see I get a prop. You get different props that you can pick up and put. Some of them you can pick up and put down. This is just like this is just one prop, but there's a bit where you have to pick up a ball and you have to use the ball and get it to roll around in the shadow and to do certain things. It's quite interesting. The game's definitely interesting. Most of the problems seem to have been reasonably fixed, and anything else, it looks like they're probably planning to fix everything. They seem to be quite good on doing the fixing and getting any of those bugs in. There are a few things like jumping and walking outside too fast and kind of don't feel quite necessarily fluid. So that can interrupt some of your problems. Oops, that's not where I need to go. But as you can see, your model's not too bad. It's not like the worst I've seen. Textures are reasonably decent. I mean, that looks like a chest. There's no like, and it seems to be decent frames as well. I mean, obviously, it's not the best in the world, but the shadows are what makes the game nice. Also, the singing as part of it, especially in the menus, the music. I don't know why it's not so much like in the actual game, but the music is really good. I would definitely give this game a play, but I'd just be aware of the few problems that it might have you might experience with it. So you've just got to be careful on that front. But other than that, yeah, the puzzles are kind of nice. They're different. It's not just your average puzzle platformer. It's more kind of a... It's a puzzle platformer where the gimmick is not overly gimmicky, and it's kind of weird as that sounds. I'm gonna get eaten by the spider. The gimmick actually is quite cool, and as you can see, you have to solve these puzzles in different ways to get to solve different problems as you go along, and you have to help this girl who sees you. They think that you are not real, and that she's talking to invisible, and that maybe she's gone mad or that there's something wrong with her. And so there's notes that you can find going around about that. There's notes you can find about her parents and what they're doing, and all sorts of different things that like fill in bits of the story. And I think lots of it's meant to be left a mystery because you're invisible and you can't see what's going on. The world feels sometimes like there are people because of the music, but it would be nice if there was more, if there was ways they made it feel like there were people. So even though like maybe they necessarily didn't want to do models of people, or they didn't know how to, or they didn't feel that their models would be very good, they could still have maybe put some music in that made it felt more, maybe like you saw a glass fall over or there was more shadows about, that kind of thing. Okay, so we're back in, this is actually the same kind of on the same place as like 3 attractions you've got to in this circus that you've got to help fix. So we're now in the pirate ship, and the door's shut, and we've got to find ways to open it. You can see that there's a purple and a green and a red. There was a red, but we've already put a box on the red. Now when you stand on this, it's a bit annoying. So if I say I had a box, which I'm going to eventually get that box up here anyway, and I was standing kind of here, so I move on to it and then this cutscene plays and I put the box down. But with this, sometimes the bounding box is a bit off, so you are like standing near it and wanted to put the box down on it and the cutscene plays, and it just takes too much time. So here we're going to be using, here's another mechanic that I haven't shown. There are sometimes doors that are completely covered in light and you can't pass through them in 2D. You have to go in 3D, you have to go into 2D, into a shadow and get out of them. This is an interactable thing. We have to twist this all the way. As you can see, when I let go, it will start to, when I let go, it starts to move. So what you have to do is, you want to wind it all the way, and then you can get into this shadow. And there's a few ways you can actually do this. You can actually go from the other side and like hop along. Because these are only short, you can actually use your right mouse, like dash through them, because you can dash through short objects. Now we can get this box and we need to actually jump off of this box. You can't jump while holding stuff, it kind of makes sense, but that's a collectible and I've just lost, I have to go back up for the collectible. That thing there was a collectible. You need them, and they help like open certain puzzles. They're called luminaries, and they're like light powers, I guess. They like give light. Sometimes you like need light to power stuff, or like, I guess it's kind of light or electricity. It's not really explained what exactly they are. And the only time you can take full damage, by the way, is in special sections where if you fall off, you wouldn't be able to get back to where you were. So if there's like endless pits and stuff. Actually, we're going to need this over here. You can see that's now stopped, and I'd have to twist it again if I wanted to go back up there. And you need some of them to solve puzzles, but there's also more in the game than there are that you need for puzzles. So you have, if you want to get the top amount, then you have to hunt in the game. They're kind of hidden around. There are a few bugs actually with. There's a few things to note. Sometimes you can get stuck. So say I were to put this down. Sometimes I can get stuck in the putting down motion, like as if it thinks I'm slightly inside the object, which is a bit weird. And then here we're going to see with this box, we're going to see I can carry this into the shadows. It doesn't actually do anything here, but I can carry this into the shadows and it'll move along. And then I can carry it out. I can put it there. You can actually leave it in the shadows if you want it to do stuff for you while in the shadows. You can see there I played that animation. Then I can drop that down, and now I can actually go through. You can see she's almost like forgets that we exist and just like stays there doing nothing most of the time. She doesn't like shout stuff to us. We can see there's a little cutscene here. There's not really much more to say about that. Oh, there's an illuminary there I missed. So you can miss stuff if you... I've collected that. I collected that before. So you have to like look around before you necessarily interact with stuff to make sure you've collected everything. The collectibles, you can view any that you've got. And I won't show them now, but they like explore the world. They're reasonably easy to spot when you've got them. There's nothing much else to say. I think the use of shadows and the way it works is quite ingenious. There are some things where you have to move the light like back and forwards, or move stuff in the light back and forwards to provide you with ways to get places, and you can see that the scenery actually here does it. So like before with that twisting, this, and then we can do our leap. Actually that's not actually where I meant to go, but there's an illuminary down here. So you can see that you need to use the world in different ways. Here we want to fire the cannon. These cutscenes are quite nice. I like the fact that they're not rendered and not like extra like film that is like low quality. They're actually in the game engine. The game engine is nice enough. I mean, this one's a bit weird. I don't know why they've shown it like this, but yeah, it's a bit weird considering this plays twice as well. And then that shoots out. You can actually get on the ship. There's not really much point. It's not actually meant to hit that. That was and then when you go through and you have to put this. Well, actually, I'll show you this because it shows you how you can objects that you use can actually go into shadow and then interact. Actually, no, I won't show you how to solve this puzzle. But you can like, I could put that ball into the shadow and take it with me into the shadow and then let it go in the shadow while I'm not in the shadow. And because it's a ball, it will roll. Same with the box will slide. So, oh, you can see here, I'm like stuck in the ball and then the ball won't fall. But other than those few glitches, I mean, they're really easy to get over. The game is really nice. I really like this shadow fusing mechanic. You can't die in the shadow, but you can die from long drops in the real world. And the game progresses. It's kind of got a kind of cute storyline about the girl, and you're just helping the girl. You're almost like an invisible friend that's real. Kind of a nice storyline. It's got a few bugs, but most of them you can get over, and there's not, once you get used to the controls, it's actually not too bad. You probably will need to reduce the mouse sensitivity. I've got it on really low and it's still like moving about quite quick. Most of the bugs that were there before, they've addressed in a patch, and they might even allow you to change the speed later on. You don't know, there might be some more patches. So this is definitely one to check out if you like puzzle platformers, and if you like this kind of interesting mechanics. It's definitely one to check out. So thank you very much for watching. This has been my first impressions of Contrast. Please subscribe for more game info, more first impressions, and I will see you next time. Bye.